There we go, Ben. A couple of things that we need to address there. How important is saving for that buffer? And I want to act as soon as possible.
So there's a couple of major things here. So, yep, I want to act sooner rather than later. I want to have a buffer, but I do have some superpowers in my arsenal, which is right in front of me, but maybe not necessarily known to Brad and certainly to our community in terms of what's possible. And what I'm talking about here is the ability to manipulate your finances to allow you to extract even greater savings than potentially what you're doing. Now, if you haven't watched our masterclass, there's a little reminder, and we'll put in the link to the show notes how you'll be able to get access to that master. It's free to watch, but one of our golden rules inside there and one of our teachings is around how you adjust the family budget to release more surplus. Now, how do you do that? In simple terms, what we do is we look at the term of the loan. Your repayments are consistent based on the term of the loan. So if the loan term is, say, 15 years, and you can reset that back to 25 or to 30 years, you make those repayments a lot less. Okay. Another way in which you can also do it is go interest only versus principal and interest, which also then makes the repayments only interest only. So there's more surplus cash that you're tracking. The other thing that you've got in your war chest here, Brad, is equity. So you've got all this available equity thanks to the work you did, the renovations you performed on your home. So we look at that equity and we say, okay, we potentially can use a portion of that equity as deposit for the new property. Yes, we are borrowing money against that, but we can also potentially use a slither of that where we can park that money into what we call an emergency fund. Okay, so it's not your money, it's still the bank's money, but we're sitting it over there in a separate loan bucket, allowing you to potentially access that in the event. So all of a sudden now, we do have that 6 months of emergency liquidity, access to cash to get us through that period. Now, hopefully people's minds are racing in terms of really that's possible. So that 300 that you're saving using Money Smarts, and this is why I'm mentioning this, because this is not something that you would recommend. So as a professional advisor, if I see a household where they can't control their spending, there's evidence of really high credit card and only making minimum repayments, I can't trust them to have the right behaviors to basically make a strategy like this work for them. So risk tolerance and also looking at the evidence in terms of that they're able to afford this. But if someone's running the Money Smart systems, I know they're doing this well, and their financial literacy and their ability to organise and control their money is a tick in that box. Because the trade-off here is, yes, I'm extending the debt out. So that means that there will be more interest that will be paid, including consolidating the car loan, which increases my borrowing power. So I am going to pay a little bit more interest on that loan over that period of time. But it's what I do with that surplus money that allows me to go and control a property asset. And I'm looking for obviously yield and growth off that property asset over the next couple of decades. Because what we've actually now done from a scenario point of view is we're looking at two different scenarios. In one case, the scenario is where we've got interest that is going to be, there's going to be a lot more interest to be paid over a longer period of time. So we might be talking about $10,000, $20,000 of additional interest charges because we've expanded out that time frame in terms of controlling the current debt, but we've supercharged the assets control. So we're now controlling an investment property. So we might have tens of thousands of dollars of additional interest. However, we've potentially got hundreds of thousands of dollars of capital growth and asset gain, and off the back of that, income gain over the decades. So this is an excellent question from Brad in terms of how looking at your finances, making the invisible visible, and doing all of that modeling can show those two different types of outcomes. And it's from there, if we go back to what we were talking about in terms of buffer, tick, and in terms of taking action and timing, that's part of that. So I can't recommend enough when people are thinking about their finances that you've got these different levers that you can pull. And if you're talking to someone who is a professional in this space and can potentially do some of that modeling scenario for you, and also, again, understands your risk profile, understands what you're trying to achieve, and is sensible about your ability to manage money. So they're not going to get you into debt that you can't control because you can't control your behavior is all part of that, Bryce.
Brad, two things I want to say to you. One is take a bow. You've been dive deeping into this stuff and implementing Money Smarts. That's a tick. But number two, drop the mic. Hopefully that what you just heard from Ben is the biggest epiphany moment for you, because it should unlock all of the mental inertia that was rattling around in your head, because now Ben is actually, and I would recommend you go and listen to that a couple of times, but Ben has just shown you how to unlock how to start now, how to not impact the family budget, and how still to get access to a 6 months worth of buffer that doesn't have to necessarily be something that you've saved. You can actually use equity to create that buffer. All we want to do at the end of the day is two things. Whenever we're looking at a client's plan, there's two graphs that we look at, and everything else is supportive to these two graphs. First graph is this. It's a projection of your money coming into the house and a projection of your money going out of the house. And we're looking for a gap. And obviously, Ben, we're looking for a gap where the green line, which is the income, is on top of the red line, which is your expenses. Because if it's the other way around, we've got a whole world of stuff to solve. So that's the first thing we want to look at. Do you have surplus cash flow? Ben talked to that point. And then the second thing that we look for is you've got to have enough access to resources that's equivalent to at least 6 months. That's it. So I'm hoping that you have now just had the biggest aha based on what Ben just said. It is a wonderful unlock for you if you were having some form of roadblocks that were sticking in your head.